Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Diatonic Dissection, where we crack open music to see what makes it tick. In this video, we'll be continuing our journey through the Sonic the Hedgehog soundtrack by visiting Marble Zone, the inexplicably well-built ruins that feature spike traps on timers, controlled magma that somehow doesn't melt stone or critters, but has no problem consuming you like the blob. This is a fun one depending on which instrument you're playing. Sorry drummers, it's a really boring one this time. Anyway, let's get into it. The tempo is 135 BPM and the key is A minor. As always, we'll start with the chords and then go into the individual parts. The chords for section A are A minor, D minor, G, C, B diminished over F, and an accidental E major to keep an eye out for at the end. The main melody uses a voice that sounds like an accordion, so with some very rushed and low quality research put into how the genre works, here it is in the context of an Argentine tango. With the main melody, there are a few things to be aware of. A jump at the end of the pickup bar, a descending first inversion D minor arpeggio in bars 4 and 12, which we'll get into afterwards, and an accidental G sharp in bar 16 because of the E major chord. As many of the guitarists out there will know, trying to play cleanly through a high-gain amplifier is like trying to herd cats while on fire. The arpeggios technically belong to another instrument in the soundtrack, but I felt that it was better to include them in the main melody, much to the detriment of my sanity and fingers. The part is descending D minor arpeggios in 16th notes, and I have practiced this part so much that I now have a callus on the outside edge of my little finger. Now, be warned, we are going to be getting into some really dry, in-depth stuff about guitar mechanics and muting and whatnot. If this does not interest you because you're not a guitarist, or would rather go watch paint dry because it would be more exciting, head on down to the timestamp on screen to skip this. Are you still here? Excellent. Join me, fellow guitar nerd, as we plumb the depths of my suffering trying to learn how to play this part on guitar. Quick side note, fuck you Nakamura for including something that sounds so good but is so hard to play. Right, let's get started. This part can be played using the regular arpeggio shapes that we know from, say, the caged system, but they sound like something unspeakable is being done to the guitar. As a result of trying and failing to use these arpeggio shapes, I discovered it was easier and tidier to do these arpeggios using string skipping and tapping, as it gives plenty of space and time for string muting. This is played across the high E, G and A strings, so it can still be done on a 6th string if you are not an idiot like me playing an 8. The first group of notes is fairly straightforward, with 13, 10 and 7 on the high E string and then the 10 on the G. The second group of notes requires that you move the left index finger up to the 10th fret from the 7th in between the 2nd and 3rd notes. The third group requires a bit of a physical shift, as you're no longer using the high E string, so you'll have to start on the 14th fret of G as opposed to the 10th fret on the E. The movement of the left index finger from the previous group provides the lowest fret and muting for the lowest note of the group. The final group is like the second group in that it's 2 notes on 2 strings. The only other thing to be careful of is moving to the next part of the melody, which requires a quick shift, as your picking hand will still be tapping, so you can either move very quickly with your pick or just use a finger and hybrid pick it. Come on, it's alright, you can come out now, non-guitar nerds. You've skipped the boring stuff, so let's just carry on with it. What I would normally refer to as a counterpoint isn't really a counterpoint, as is very often the case with the Sonic soundtrack. It's more of a rhythmic accompaniment, but I am a stickler for this format. Much like the melody at the start of Green Hill Zone, it's 2 melodic lines a third apart and playing the same rhythm. I realise that I don't play these parts together in this kind of situation because it sounds horrible, like this. This is the result of something I've learned about recently called intermodulation distortion. And basically, it's how all the frequencies interact and subtract from one another. It's a whole thing. Anyway, there is a great video from somebody called Brad Allen Williams over on Instagram. I've linked it down below, where you can see the actual ins and outs of this particular phenomenon and why it happens. Also, that aside, keep an eye out for the accidental G sharp at the end. The bass part is fun and feels quite funky, and it's mainly arpeggios, which is fairly unusual. These arpeggios pretty much follow the chord structure, with the exception of the first one being an A sus4 instead of an A minor. start of the video, the drums for this are very, very boring. After the pickup on the snare, it's all just 4 on the floor on the bass drum and some very gentle 8th notes on the snare. Now on to section B. Section B is only 4 bars, so there aren't many chords, but they are A minor, G, and F. These just go in the same order twice to make up the section. The main melody for section B is a fun one, as it involves a lot of jumps and leaps. No accidentals to worry about in this section, unlike section A. It's just a 2-bar phrase that repeats once to complete it. Again, the counterpoint isn't really a counterpoint as it's not intrinsically tied to the main melody. This part follows the chords and starts on the offbeat. When you combine the main melody and the counterpoint, you get something that sounds a bit like a Baroque harpsichord piece in the vein of Bach and Handel. The bass part is very simple as the notes follow the chords. The drums in section B are slightly more interesting than section A, but that's like saying watching a different shade of paint dry is more exciting than watching white paint dry. The bass drum is still doing quarter notes, but the snare gets to do dotted quarter and 8th notes throughout with the floor tom. And that's it, another short video, but we've still managed to stretch 37 seconds of music into God knows how many minutes of analysis. As always, leave a like, subscribe, comment, ring the bell, and leave an ice cream cone in your back pocket in the name of the algorithm gods. If you want the sheet music for this, then sign up over on the Diatonic Dissection Patreon. It's all free. But if you wanted to chip in a couple of dollars, awesome. Good on you. I hope that you've enjoyed the video, if you're still here, and found it interesting / entertaining, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!